Mock draft season is here. Talking Buffalo. We're kicking off the first of 5 weekly ones with my man, Bruce Nolan from Buffalo Rumblings, starting right now.
Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. Appreciate y'all very, very much. This is our Wednesday episode and the kickoff of mock draft season here on Talking Buffalo for the next 5 Wednesdays leading up to the actual NFL draft. We are going to do a full Buffalo Bills mock draft. I'm going to have a couple different guests coming up over the next few weeks. But to kick this all off and also to close the deal with our 5th and final mock the day before the draft, been a long time coming here on this podcast, at least as a solo guest anyway. Bruce Nolan, man, what is going on? How you doing?
It's a party all the time, Pat. Just disco balls, dancers, the whole thing. You know how we do.
I was looking it up, Bruce, and you've been on the show a couple times now. We do our annual podcasters roundtable, yourself, Greg Thompson, Joe Marino, always one of my most look forward to and fun episodes of the whole year. But I actually had to do a little bit of research here. Not on wide receivers, not on safeties, not on defensive tackles, sleeper picks, stuff like that. Talk about the draft, but you. And I had to go all the way back. It has been nearly 3 years now since I've had you on this podcast as a solo guest. I had to go all the way back, May 18th, 2021, episode 329 here as we tape 758. So to say that Bruce Nolan is long overdue here as a guest on Talking Buffalo, quite the understatement, man.
I got to be honest, Pat. I just assumed I had done something. I had said something that had just irritated you to such a significant degree that now it was just like, well, it's tradition, so we'll have him back on the podcasters roundtable. But aside from that, my speaking privileges on Talking Buffalo have been revoked.
No, man, never that, buddy. But, we talk all the time. We're in a media dynasty league, and nowadays we kind of talk more about, instead of me trying to get you to come on the show, we're always talking fantasy dynasty trades, thoughts on that league, which is a lot of fun, by the way. Honestly, I've said this to you before, man. I appreciate your time, and you have your own show, and I know you constantly, not maybe quite as much these days as maybe a couple of years ago, but you're always guesting on other shows. You're always involved with other stuff. So I don't know, when it comes to you and Joe and Greg, I just like to get you guys on together at once. I just have great respect for your time. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't watch on the show, buddy. I'd have you on every week if I could, but you know what I'm saying, man. You're a busy dude. You got a life, you got a career, you got your own show, the Bruce Exclusive. Still one of my favorite 2 to 3 podcasts out there. Listen to it every week, but you're a busy dude, man. Got time. So I don't like to bother you. Unless
I've heard this before, Pat.
Draft.
This is the it's not you, it's me talk, right? You can't say it's not you, it's me. I say it's not you, it's me. I invented it's not you, it's me. No, I'm just channeling my inner George Costanza here. But it's good. It's good to be here. And you put me on the spot with a live mock. And we're just going to see how deep the rabbit hole of Bruce's knowledge goes, because my goal every year is to scout 175 players. That's always my goal. And I hit it most of the time. I'm not there yet. So it's going to be really fun when we get into day 3 of this mock and I'm scrambling because I know like 8 people and I'm like, quick, I hope one of them's available. It's going to be a good time.
Let me ask you this about mock drafts too, before we get going, because I feel like most people out there enjoy them. A lot of people like to do their own mocks. There's a lot of people out there who like to consume other people's and then have their thoughts on them. There's some people who think it's an amazing exercise. It's a lot of fun and informative. Then there's other people who say that it's a waste of time. The people who say it's a waste of time, they might have a fair point in one respect, and that's this. Bruce could be one of the most knowledgeable football people in the industry, and he certainly is. But come mock day, your mock draft, one thing's going to happen. It's going to get blown up, and 99% of the time, it's not going to even be close to being accurate. So the critics will say, well, it never turns out to be accurate. My take is, and I want to know if you agree on this, I think it's a great educational, informative experience. I think it gives you an opportunity by being in the trenches, involved with mocks and learning about players. You're learning about players. You're learning about other teams. You're learning about needs. You're kind of learning about how things might play out on a board, when it gets to the actual mock, like we're doing mock version 1 today. I know you're going to be doing your own as well. By the time you get closer to the mock, you're going to start to see, I would think, you're going to start to see some trends and patterns in your mock drafts that might make you rethink things and adjust things differently. Do you think that mock drafts, other than being fun to do and kind of fill in some gaps for us content creators, do you feel like it serves good purposes?
If you're thinking that the only way that they have value is if they're predictive, then of course you think they're useless.
Sure.
Like, it's just the way it works, right? But by that definition, all content is useless. Like, all of my content. If mock drafts are useless, then all of my content is useless because none of it moves the needle at all, right? So I don't have any power to move any needle when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. And predicting things is incredibly unreliable. The best predictor in the world is terrible. It's just degrees of terrible. It's how terrible are you, right? Are you mostly terrible? Are you, notably terrible? You markedly terrible? Like, what adverb are we using in front of terrible to describe your predictive skills? So yeah, if you think they're predictive and therefore useless, then of course, yeah, I get that. But that's not what I have ever always thought about. I've never thought about them that way. I think about them as thought exercises. And thought exercises are never bad because they force you to evaluate possibilities. That's what thought exercises are. So if it were to play out like this, how would I feel about this? The more mocked you are going into the draft as a general rule, the more level your emotions will be and the less roller coaster you will take pick to pick. Because we've seen the roller coaster. You have seen a first round draft pick that the Buffalo Bills fans did not like, and the whole world is over until the Buffalo Bills make their next pick. And then we get to decide if the world is still over. And here we are on day 3 of the draft, wondering if this 6th round player that we're going to get is really going to move the needle. That's the roller coaster we're going on. I remember vividly getting into knockdown, drag out arguments with people about the fact that the Buffalo Bills didn't take a flyer on Kellen Moore on day 3 of the draft. Like, well, I was like, dude, bro, it's a 6th round pick. Like, let's just chill for a second, right? But the more mocked you are, the more experienced you are, the more mock drafts you looked at and evaluated, the less you're going to go for a ride. And I don't want to go for a ride. Now, you might love that. You might love screaming into the ether on the internet. For me, not really my thing. So because of that, I'm just going to be really happy that I get to go through thought exercises with people like you, and I get to prepare myself for, if this were to happen, how would I feel?
I feel like mock drafts for a casual fan to maybe more than a casual fan, it's kind of like, this is the season where, like, you're in college right now and you're taking a course that you don't know a lot about the course, but you looked at the title and it really interests you. Like, you want to learn more about it. Like, if you're a football fan, you don't know really shit about these prospects. I'll tell you, the average person doesn't know more than maybe a small handful of these prospects right now. And kind of like I said, you're going to college. Man, I really like this course. It sounds really interesting. You get there, you really don't know what you're talking about, but because you're so interested, I feel like you're going to dig in more and you want to learn more about them. Does that kind of make sense to you in a way? Like, it's almost like college for football fans who don't follow college football and prospects all that much.
For me, it's like the overlap between the fact that you love college football and you love the NFL, and then for one weekend, it's like an eclipse where one of them passes over the other, and you try not to stare at it for too long or else your eyes will go boggly, right? It's the same concept. But for me, it's just It's the coalescence of those two things. So for a lot of people, they don't even start doing this stuff until after free agency, in which case you're just not going to know more than a very small handful of players, and you're only going to know them primarily by their position. Like, this is something we talked about on the Bruce exclusive a couple weeks ago. It's just, hey, I really want a wide receiver round 1. Cool. Talk to me about that. Well, I mean, I want a wide receiver round 1. Okay, cool. Talk about that. Well, I want a wide receiver round 1. So, like, say more. They can't say more. They can't elaborate, right? Which is fine, mind you, right? But you just have to understand that your opinion doesn't carry as much weight. Like, I don't have to give it as much credence. This idea that everybody has an equal level of opinion is not true. Right. They don't. Some people have more levels of opinion. People who have watched a lot of these players have a more credible opinion than someone who hasn't. It's just the way it works. And so I think that this is kind of a cool moment for people who love college football, because for a brief second, you're like, well, wait a second. I know more than you. It's like that moment from National Treasure where was the character Riley? I think the character's name is Riley, who's like Nicolas Cage's buddy in National Treasure. And he looks up and goes, well, wait. I know something you don't know. Oh, hold on a second. I just need to bask in this for a second. Is this how you feel all the time? He says, just for that one moment, he goes, for the one moment, I know more than you, right? And for all the people who love college football, this is kind of their moment,
Yeah, that is completely spot on. So we're going to jump into our mock, which, by the way, we're doing it through the PFF site. More on that in a second. But real quick, before we get to the actual Bills mock draft today, kind of want to quickly just go through the Bills offseason moves, and more specifically, a singular tweet that you had some point over the weekend. A thumbs up, thumbs down. That was like the Bruce emoji, thumbs up or thumbs down to the moves. And most of them were thumbs up. You had thumbs up for Curtis Samuel, Gabe Davis leaving, Austin Johnson signing over the weekend, Mike Edwards, Poyer leaving, Dawkins, DaQuan Jones, Mac Hollins, Ty Johnson. Got a big long list here. The Tehran extension, Casey Toohill, thumbs down that you had. And there were a couple, but one of them I wanted to ask you specifically about. Morse getting cut. Totally could see why that would be a thumbs down from you. Ryan Bates being traded, ditto. And then you had, which I agree with, but I want to get your take on this. You had a thumbs down emoji next to the Bills re-signing Taylor Rapp. So I'd be remiss if I had you on the show and I didn't ask you why the thumbs down emoji for Taylor Rapp.
So first, let's talk about thumb up and thumb down in general. So
okay,
if you go through an entire offseason and every single transaction your team makes gets a thumbs up from you, you're a homer. It's not possible.
Sure.
It's literally not possible for every single maneuver that a team makes in the offseason to be good. It's not possible, right? And it's fine if you're a homer. That's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There are people who have an entire worldview based around just endless hope, and it's all reactive. I don't have an opinion before the decision, but I love my team, so I know my opinion after the decision is going to be awesome. And that's okay, right? But just like I said before, I don't have to value that opinion as much. I don't have to, because it's reactive. You didn't have an opinion before the decision. You just waited until the decision got made, and then because you're a fan of that team, you went, yay. It's not possible for every single thing that a team does to be bad. And it's not possible for every single thing that a team does to be good. It's not possible. There's just no organization bats 1,000. So because of that, you have to have opinions leading up to it. My opinion leading up to it was that Taylor Rapp was not overly effective in 2023 as a Buffalo Bills safety. The fact that he ended up getting a more meaningful contract after his last contract is something I don't quite understand. So yes, I recognize it's not a massive amount of money, but if he's going to be a third safety, I think you can get a third safety cheaper. And if he's going to be a starter, then I'm worried very much about just projecting him as a starter. And if he's going to be a third safety, I don't like the contract. So that's the thumbs up, thumbs down. And so you can say, well, he's second year assistant, Bruce. He'll be much better this year. That's fine. I get that. But that's projection. You are assuming something that you did not most recently see. And here's what, okay, small sample size. Taylor Rapp made the division-changing play. He also played 420 other snaps. Did you watch any of them? Like, okay,
Yeah.
Congratulations. He picked off Tua to seal the division. Awesome. Is that the only thing he did? Aside from injure his own players? Like, is there other things he did? Well, he's a hard hitter. Okay, so hard hitting is not a valuable trait in safeties anymore. That's like, it's not 1992 anymore. It's not
Right.
Ronnie Lott patrolling the middle of the field, striking fear into the hearts of wide receivers. That's just called getting penalties at this point, right? Hard hitting, we just call that penalties now because that's where the NFL is. So for me, when I look at Taylor Rapp, I go, okay, that's fine. Is there a real possibility that Taylor Rapp comes in, solidifies that starting spot, and you have a 3-year deal with cost control for an above average starter? Yes, that's a possibility. But it's a projection based on something you didn't see last year, that doesn't mean it can't happen. It absolutely can't happen. But I have to go based on what I just saw. And what I just saw means that he'd have to take a jump. If you'd like to assume he'll take a jump, that's fine. Like, I'm cool with that. But I'm not going to assume that he's 26 and now he takes a jump the second year in the system, because we've seen plenty of players come in and play really, really well the first year in Sean McDermott's system, especially safeties. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, most notably among them. So for me, that makes it a thumbs down. It's like I'm screaming from the rooftop, but it's an approval, disapproval system. I don't get a chance to like go, hey, it's a 4 out of 10. Hey, it's 6 out of 10. It's just thumbs up or thumbs down. And for me, that's thumbs down.
Very fair. Very fair. When you look at the totality of this offseason so far for the Buffalo Bills, as things stand right now, and I do want to mention, so this podcast is dropping on Wednesday morning, our first mock draft. Bruce and I are actually taping this pretty late Sunday night. So there's always the possibility that something significant, very significant, could happen on Monday or Tuesday, which would kind of throw things off for the purpose of this. And if something does happen, now you know why we haven't addressed that on this show. As things stand right now, though, Bruce, do you feel like Brandon Beane has done enough that you can go into the draft feeling reasonably confident that there's not one stick out like a sore thumb need right now that, like, you look at this board and you're like, we got to go here. We got to go here. I mean, if it's even relatively close in terms of value, at least, we got to go to this position and not this guy, even though this guy might be a little bit of a better player. But man, this is such a big need. Like, what do you feel right now in terms of how this team, how Brandon Beane has done addressing what were, at least for sure, a couple weeks ago, some pretty big needs?
When you look at the projected starters across the 22 open spots on offense and defense for the Buffalo Bills, I feel comfortable that you have at least an okay player in all of them, right? Taylor Rapp, David Edwards, probably the two players that I have the most significant concerns about among those 22 starters. But I think if you're evaluating it based on, okay, first tier of concern, do we need starters and where do we need them? Second tier of concern, where do we need depth and where do we need them? I feel like tier one, you're like, okay, there aren't any massive alarms going off, right? I just went on this huge rant about Taylor Rapp, but I'm not screaming from the mountaintops that he's a terrible player and needs to be cut and banned from the NFL forever, right? For me, I don't want to just roll in just assuming we're going to see a jump from him. So for me, when it's Taylor Rapp and David Edwards are the players where I'm like, okay, Connor McGovern, I liked him a lot better at guard than I did as a center. So I don't know. I mean, I think he's a more gifted player than David Edwards. So I think I'd see better at safety than I feel at left guard. But for me, I feel okay. Overall, given the restraints that Brandon Beane had to work with, I never like giving up offensive line depth, ever.
Right.
Like, unless it's just outrageously priced, right? Which I don't think the Bates contract was amazing, but I don't think it was prohibitively terrible. And same thing with Mitch Morse. So for me, I don't like giving up offensive line depth ever, just for any reason, because it's so unbelievably hard to find and it can wreck your entire season if you don't have it.
Sure.
So for me, that's but overall, I mean, Brandon Beane did a pretty good job. I feel better about the wide receiver core than I did. I like Mac Hollins and Curtis Samuel more than I like Deontay Hardy and Gabe Davis. So I'm good there. Like, I feel like that's probably an upgrade. Now, it's not enough of an upgrade for me. I still want more at that spot. But safety, obviously, you're concerned because you're losing 2 stalwarts, right? But it's not like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde lit the world on fire last year, right? Linebacker, you lost Tyrell Dodson, but you drafted Dorian Williams last year, and he has the ability to step up as a player who could potentially be in 3 linebacker sets and compete with Nicholas Moreau. So I think you address defensive tackle when you re-signed Daquan Jones, you signed Austin Johnson. So I feel better about that. I didn't love the backup one tech situation. I saw Jordan Phillips in the A gap way too much in 2023. Like, I have nightmares at this point. So I'm really happy about that. I think you could make an argument this team still needs an edge rusher. I know it makes us all very angry after the amount of resources that you put into this team. That you still potentially need an edge rusher. But again, just like projection for Taylor Rapp, I don't want to project Von Miller to recover form and be like a game wrecker again. So overall, I feel pretty solid about what Brandon Beane has done. Obviously, there's individual moves I can approve or disapprove of, but overall, I feel okay.
I got to tell you, as we're getting into here, I mean, you just mentioned it, whether it's on Twitter with people just tweeting whatever the hell they're going to tweet, man, or friends that I run into, family friends who, at the restaurant, stuff like that, the thing I hear more than anything else is, well, they're really going to take a defensive line in the first round. I hear it all the time because of how much the Bills have invested in the defensive line and mixed bag of results, pretty good in the regular season, kind of face plants in the playoffs for the defense. I'm sure you hear it a lot. I know you well enough without even having talked to you about the draft. By the way, for everybody out there watching or listening, I got no earthly idea right now. I know you did a mock draft on Sunday and put it on Twitter. Literally, before we started taping this, I intentionally didn't even look at it. I have no idea what you're thinking right now. And I'm kind of excited about that. So on that note, on the video side here, let me pull up everything here, make sure I got everything right. And we'll do the first round, then we'll take a break, and then we'll kind of fly through. We'll pick up the pace, especially as the middle to late rounds as well. I think you would admit this too, Bruce. What we do right now on week 1, say when we reconvene in a month, like you might know a couple rounds worth of players pretty well right now. I would say in a handful of weeks, you're probably going to know maybe dozens more significantly better. You agree with that, right?
I would agree with that. I still take Saturdays and Sundays pretty much every week, and I watch football. The difference is I'm watching draft prospects now instead of college, and I'm watching games I haven't hit during the regular season. So my goal every year is to watch every game from every team.
Right.
And so in order to do that, you have to watch all year round, right? You have to spend Saturday and Sunday when it's not football season still watching football. Like, you can watch an entire game, in 45 or 50 minutes, as long as you speed up and you go through the, abbreviated NFL Plus feed for things like that. And so you can power through those things. Now, it really hurts my ability to watch as much TV shows as I'd like. But at the end of the day, you've watched a significant chunk. I don't always get to it, but a significant chunk of every team in the league. And you have a good handle on it. And that helps me in dynasty discussions, and it helps me just understand context of the Bills. And so, yeah, I'll be better off in a month than I am now.
Sure, for sure. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I got it on, if you're watching on the video side, I got it on the full screen version right now. We're using PFF. If you're listening on the audio side, which I know the majority of people are doing, we're just going to explain it as best we can. This is the PFF model. It's a good model. We can do trades, but for this mock, at least anyway, we're not going to do any trades today. So there'll be no trades in this mock, as tempted as Bruce may be. We will definitely have some in future mocks. I want to put it out there. The one downside, and again, if you're watching us on the video side, you'll notice once we start to draft, we'll be able to pause it, and I will pause it to go over some scenarios as we go through these. But the one thing we cannot do, and we tried doing this before the show, if you pause the draft, we cannot go to like the PFF big board and see who's out there. The only time that shows up is when the Bills are actually on the clock. When the Bills are on the clock, Bruce might tell me, let's take a look at whatever position or the overall guys. You'll be able to see that visually on the screen. But otherwise, you won't be able to. So on that note, let's get going. And like I said, I'll pause this a couple times. We'll start it now. We've started the draft. Yeah, I mean, Let me ask you this as we're going around. If there were trades right now, do you have any player? And we'll go through, like, say, pick 17, and then we'll stop it and I'll go through it. Just like not. And by the way, I'm not going to read every pick out. That would take us forever. But a couple here and there, I'll go through. Obviously, Caleb Williams and those guys go first. Is there any player that you're eyeing, Bruce, right now, specifically, maybe that the Bills pick at 28? Let's just say if they get an opportunity to move up, or it's not too costly, like maybe 23, 24. Do you have players that you think are worthy of moving up for, or is it still a little bit too early to know that?
I mean, obviously, if a player falls meaningfully, then I'll be interested. But I have a hard cap on cost. So for me, it's however high you can get using one of your fourths, and that's usually 2 spots, maybe 3.
Right.
So for me, if you're at 28, 25 might be as high as you can get with the price that I'm willing to pay. I am not willing to give up a future first. I am not willing to give up the 60 to jump up there and get it. I think you got to hit on draft picks, and you need more people to be able to do it. You need more darts to be able to do it. So I'm willing to toss a 4 and move up 2 spots, but I'm not willing to do a 1, 2, 4 next year's 1 to try and drop off, 10 spots. I mean, unless Roma Dunze were to fall, you know what I mean? Like it would have to be something like staggering to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, at this point in the draft, I know there's going to be some people who are keenly on the receivers. We're through pick 17, I should say. So far, it's only been the 3 big receivers that have been picked. And I know Byron Murphy is a defensive tackle that people have went about. And it's also worth noting too, Bruce, in terms of moving up this year, because Brandon Beane historically likes to do that. Bills don't have a 3rd round pick this year, as things stand right now anyway. So that could be some lost ammunition. So you're going into probably 2025 if you want to do that. All right, so I'll let this run so far. We're at 17, nothing really cooking too much yet. Johnny Newton just went off the board at 18. All right, I'll pause it now because now we're getting closer. All right, so over that last chunk of picks, Johnny Newton went to the Bengals at 18. Lot 2, a guy who I watched Greg Thompson at a mock draft show, and then he ended up falling to the Bills, and that was his pick at 28. From what I've heard or read, I should say, at least, that would kind of be a surprise. But, Brian Thomas Jr. did go. I'm sorry. So Brian Thomas Jr. is off the board, 23 to Minnesota. So you've lost an edge rusher, defensive tackle, and wide receiver 4 so far in the mock draft. You still got 24, 25. So 4 picks before the Bills are up. What are you thinking right now? If you're Brandon Beane and this is how the first 24 picks have played out.
Right now, I think if you're an Adonai Mitchell fan, you're crossing your fingers and hoping he makes it to 28. I think that if you're a defensive tackle guy, the 2 tackles that you would think about taking are probably off the board. And I think that one of the meaningful edge rushers that you were hoping would fall is probably off as well. So I think if your wide receiver train 1st round, no matter what, it has to be that position. I don't even care who it is. It just has to be that position. That I think you're crossing your fingers and hoping AD Mitchell's falls. That's how I think you're at.
Okay, so you're talking 4 picks off right now. I just asked you about trading up a few minutes ago, maybe 2 spots because you only, you don't want to give up too much. 4 spots, 28 to 24, you're giving up more than 4th. So you're still at a point right now where it's like nobody on the board. You're not moving up at this point, right? Even if
I think if this has happened in real life and Mitchell got past the Cowboys at 24, the Packers are probably not going to take a wide receiver at 25. So I would call him and say, if I gave you a 4, would you let me pop up 3 spots?
Sure.
And get my guy? Like if there was a guy that you really liked at that spot, that's where I would probably target.
Okay. All right. So we got 4 picks, and I'm just going to go one by one. We're close enough now that I can pause it after each one. So Dallas is on the clock at 24, and they took the safety, Tyler Nubin, at 24. Green Bay would be on the clock. And hold on, did I let 2 go? All right, Chop Robinson. I was going to ask you about him. He's an edge guy. Would he have been in strong consideration for you had he fallen to the Bills? He just went 26, 2 picks before the Tampa Bay.
I think about it. I think that the physical tools that Chop Robinson has, I think you just don't find tools like that outside the top 15 of the draft very often. And there's a reason why he's there, why he's available in the 20s. And it's because he needs some work.
Mhm.
But there are tools with Chop Robinson that are top 5, top 8 level tools. And so if you are at the bottom of the first round, you're consistently picking at the bottom of the first round, you just, there's certain types of tools you're just not going to get very often. And that's the type of player who has those kind of tools. And I know
Gotcha.
it's a very back and forth opinion in the community about Chop. It's just a matter of, do you believe that you can have the developing defensive coaches who can bring out the best in him?
Okay. All right. So one pick here, Arizona, and then the Bills are on the clock. And that pick was Kool-Aid McKinstry from a corner. So the Bills are on the clock right now. So you're looking at the big board. I'll pull this up. I know you want to see this first. Per PFF, the top of their big board is a center, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. So he's on the board. These are the top guys. Adonai Mitchell is on the board. So you have Mitchell, you have Powers Johnson. I don't really see him going tackle or a linebacker in the first round, although never say never. Lamb McConkey's there. They're not going to mess with any quarterbacks. Is there any position or any player like specifically you want me to look for?
I'm going to make everyone mad because that's what I've been doing. It feels like most of this podcast already. I know that Ladd is there, and I know that AD Mitchell's there. I'm taking Jackson Powers Johnson because he's the best player. I think this is the ability to make up for the fact that I was pounding the table for Creed Humphrey and we didn't get him.
Okay.
This is what that is. I think Jackson Powers Johnson is a slam dunk top 16 pick in this draft. And the fact that he's here at 28 and he's the best interior offensive lineman in the class, to me, that's a W. You want to make it better that you gave up on Mitch Morse maybe a year, probably too soon, in my opinion. You take Jackson Powers Johnson.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to take her. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break, then we'll take him on the pick, and we'll accelerate it a little bit going into the further round. So a stunner here going into the break. Bruce Nolan with Mitchell and McConkey on the board goes center. What will we do next? Be right back and find out. All right, I'm back here with Bruce Nolan, and we just took Jackson Powers Johnson, pick 28 overall. So we got a center. As this loads up, well, I was going to say you got to be looking receiver second, but you could still be looking edge. We'll stop this in a few and go there. I'm not really all that surprised, and it is a sensible pick because I'll pause it. I want to give a quick take too on your first round pick. You get this guy. He's a slam dunk stud, good player. You probably got 2 tackles who are going to be around for a while. You got Torrance, who's definitely going to be around for a while. You just got 80% of your offensive line intact for your franchise quarterback long term. I think when some sticker shock might wear off from Bills fans who see Mitchell and McConkey on the board and you don't take them, I think this actually is a really sound pick.
I think he's the cleanest player of those 3. I think that I would be shocked if he wasn't a high-level interior offensive lineman for a meaningful amount of time. And I like AD Mitchell. I think that if Jackson Powers Johnson wasn't there, I would have taken Mitchell. And if Mitchell wasn't there, I probably would have taken McConkey. Like those were my top 3 players at 28 that were there in that order. And so for me, when I look across the spectrum, it's not like I don't like Mitchell or I don't like McConkey. It's just that it's the best interior offensive lineman on the board. And I think it's in the draft. And I'm all the way in. If that
for people who are listening to this and can't see it on the board, if you didn't like the fact that Mitchell didn't go to Buffalo via Bruce Nolan, our GM today, you're definitely not going to like the fact that Mitchell went on the board, or went off the board, I should say, pick 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, we're in the second round now. Pick 36. This one was interesting to me. Darius Robinson. I saw Joe Biscaglia wrote about him in The Athletic about a week or so ago. Kind of said he was like potentially like an Eric Armstead type. Like he could play inside, outside, and that might be somebody that could interest the Bills. Would you have an interest in somebody like him? Maybe not at 28, but maybe if you move back a couple spots, like could he be a a late, very end of the first or early second round guy for you?
It's funny because he actually fits a lot of the track record that historically Beane and the McBeane regime has liked. I mean, when you think about players like AJ Epinesa, where there was a question as to whether or not he was going to reduce inside and he was going to be more of an Eric Armstead or he was going to be a 3-4-5 tech. The same questions existed with Gregory Rousseau. The same questions existed with Boogie Basham. These are a specific type of player where you're like, wow, they have that length and that size that they don't typically get 245-pound edges. Like that's just not a very frequent thing. When you even go back to their track record in Carolina, that wasn't overly the type of player that they got. It was those long-limbed, heavy-handed compression rusher style players. And so I'm not shocked that there would be connection to Darius Robinson. I personally would like to see him play at 3-tech. But I'd be interested. The first question I would have if he was picked by the Buffalo Bills is, okay, what are you doing with him? And we'd have to wait until the press conference, right? Because they would say it's like, with the 28th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Buffalo Bills select Darius Robinson, defensive lineman, Missouri. And we'd be like, what do you mean defensive lineman? Like, is he a tackle or is he an edge? Like, how do they announce him? Or we're sitting there waiting for his, press conference. And because that's a thing that happens with the draft in Twitter in real time. And so I think the stylistic connection makes sense to me, but I think there's going to be better options at 28. And I think he's going to go before 60. So, but then again, I thought Boogie Basham was going to go before 60, before the end of the second round too. So, there it is.
Right. All right. So for the wide receiver train crowd out there, this is a feeling that I had going in. You don't necessarily need to take one at 28, but I feel like if you want one of the receivers that most of us know about, you're probably going to have to move up because somewhere between 28 to 60, a good chunk of them are going to go. And I've kind of strapped Bruce to the table a little bit with this first mock because I'm not allowing him to make any trades. He was kind of, if he was taking receiver in round 2, he's kind of, helpless right now to the rest of the board, which is not playing out very well for him there, if that's what he's thinking anyway, because Lamb McConkey went at pick 39 to Carolina, and a safety, Javon Bullard, I hear a lot about him. He goes to Washington at 40. I know there's at least another wide receiver out here that I saw that's off the board now. Who the hell is it? Where is it? Oh, Roman Wilson. He goes to the Philadelphia Eagles at pick 50. All right, so we're going to resume the draft here. We're going to go all the way to the Bills pick now at 60. Well, we'll recap. We went 51 to 58 if anyone matters. And then we're going to be on the clock with the Buffalo Bills pick, which is coming up right now. All right, so from where were we? All right, Ricky Pearsall, receiver. He went pick 49 to Jacksonville. I forgot about him. Troy Flanken went off the board too. I forgot about him. That's the guy I forgot to mention. He actually went pick 38. He went a pick before McConkey. So Franklin's off the board, McConkey, Pearsall, Roman Wilson's off the board. And it's again, if you're looking receivers, Brandon Fisk, a pretty highly regarded defensive tackle. He went off the board at 53 to Philly. And there's Xavier Legette, a guy that and a lot of people seem to like. 2 picks ahead to Green Bay. All right, Bruce, unfair, because again, I stretch you to the table here. But if he's on the board at 58 or one of those guys are on the board mid-50s, I'm going to assume you want to go up and go get one of them.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing. I take my 2 and 4 and I'd say, okay, how high does this get me? And the answer on how high does it get me is it usually gets me, 6-8 picks I can get with that. And that would get me enough to get a Roman Wilson or Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette, because that's the range when I would want to trade up, but I couldn't trade back and I can't trade up. So I just got to stick and pick.
Right. Okay. And again, this is not Bruce's fault, and Bruce is probably going to catch some shit when I put this on Twitter. Be like, where's the receiver in round 2? Well, I don't know. My mindset is this. Sometimes mocks with trades, you make so many and it just gets so unrealistic, but no trades. And this could end up being the result. You kind of get screwed a little bit. Anyway. All right. So the top of the board, we got to do what we got to do here. Quarterback and running. Well, I would think a running back in round 2 is not even a consideration. No, it's not like every wide receiver, by the way, is off the board.
No, one of my favorites is still here.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me pull up the wide receivers here specifically. Jalen Polk is there. DeSantis Walker, Javon Baker. I've heard a lot of good things about him. Johnny Wilson. What do you think right now, a receiver? One of these guys in your crosshairs right now?
One of the problems with doing a PFF mock draft after I've done so many PFF mock drafts is you start to fall into a similar habit and you have to force yourself out of it. But I'm not going to do that this time around. I'm taking Javon Baker.
Okay.
And I'm happy for it. So there are 3 receivers that make a lot of sense to me if any one of them is there at 60. And I put a post on Twitter and I used the Triforce from The Legend of Zelda to describe the 3 of them. And it's Ricky Pearsall from Florida, it's Roman Wilson from Michigan, and it's Javon Baker from UCF. Those 3 players are players that I'm very interested in. Pick one. Just rip the tag off, and whichever one's remaining at 60, take it if you didn't take one in the first round. One of the reasons why I'm so very comfortable not taking a wide receiver is because I know one of them was going to be there at 60. I feel so comfortable because I've done these mock drafts so many times at this point that I feel really comfortable that one of them will be there at 60. And I like all 3 of them. I like them all as immediate contributors. I like them all as potential meaningful contributors down the line. And so for me, Javon Baker is a player who is really that pure X boundary receiver. And there's not a lot of them in the NFL draft anymore because everyone gets moved around. They're all slots. In order to succeed on the boundary, you have to have body control. You have to have a release package. And you have to be able to push things vertically. And you can do that with Javon Baker. All 3 of those things can do. I think it allows you to increase the longevity of Stephon Diggs because you can start playing him out of a slot a lot more. You don't have to constantly ask him to do those things. And also, one of the things you got to think about, now that you don't have Gabriel Davis, who's your boundary guy?
Yeah.
I mean, Samuel can play on the outside. Diggs can play on the outside. They can play on the outside, but we really like to be able to play Diggs more inside. You want to be able to put Curtis Samuel in the backfield sometimes, right? But you can't have all these things if you don't have somebody who can win on the boundary, on the outside of the offensive line of scrimmage. And to do that, you need someone who can win against press. You need someone who has body control. He can push the ball vertically. He can stack receivers. He can play on the horizontal plane with some of those deep in-breaking routes. You need someone who can be the backside dig in your, no pun intended because of Stephon Diggs, but you need someone who can be backside dig in your offense, that role that Odell Beckham was famous for, right? Over the course of his time with the Giants and with the Browns, is that he's always there on that backside dig. You have to be able to win in that way to be an X receiver in this league. And I think Javon Baker can do that.
I like it. And, I think this is kind of a little bit of a lesson for fans out there. Don't just pay attention to wide receiver 4 through wide receiver like 8 or 9. As Bruce just said, there's definitely going to be at least a handful of potential quality receivers there near the end of round 2. All right, so what I did is while we were going over Javon Baker, I kept going all the way to the Bills' 4th round pick here. They're on the clock. They're going to be on the clock again just 5 picks later. So at this point, because we missed a bunch of picks, I'm not going to scroll all the way back up. I'll let you know, and for people listening, on the big board, Estedemy, the running back from Notre Dame, I'm a fan of his because I'm a Notre Dame fan. I don't watch a lot of college football, but I watch a lot of Notre Dame football. Don't know if the 3rd round, it feels like he's the type of running back that would complement James Cook well, but I don't know if that's enough of a value taking a running back in the 3rd round. So we got that. Do you want me to take a look at any specific positions?
Yeah, scroll down the big board a little bit. Estime is, we're here in the 4th, and Braylon Allen and Estime are both here. I've seen them both as being popular picks if you want a power back at this point. I think McKinley Jackson is a player that I think is popular at this spot. Keep scrolling down here. I really like Christian Boyd here as a defensive interior lineman. That has been a popular pick for me. I'm gonna get super greedy for a second. Pat, show me the wide receivers again.
Will do. All right, so we're pulling up wide receivers here.
Okay, I thought this would be the case. I'm the next pick is at 133.
Yeah,
I am gonna take. I
like it. Real time.
Yeah, I'm going to do
I
it.
love it.
All right, go back to the big board.
Go back to the big board.
Go back to the big board. I know what I'm doing here. All right, scroll down. I am going to keep scrolling. I'm taking Christian Boyd here, the defensive interior from Northern Iowa. The Bills have had connection with him, and I think that that's obviously fun when it comes to predictiveness. That's always a good time. But more importantly, I'm not done yet with the defensive interior line. I think that Boyd is a player that you can play. You can play him inside as far as a one tech goes. You can play him in the B gap as well. This is someone whose snaps in 2023 were almost equal between the A gap and the B gap. And so I want someone who I can simultaneously line up next to Daquan Jones or Austin Johnson if Ed Oliver needs a breather, and can also line up next to Ed Oliver in long and late situations. That 4-man rotation of Ed Oliver, I'm gonna make a statement right here. Okay. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Austin Johnson, Christian Boyd is the best interior 4 that Sean McDermott has ever had. Oof. If that's the case.
Wow.
That's my opinion. Now you can go back and look. Like, that's not an overly bold statement, I don't think, but it's the best interior 4 that you've ever had, and you can just constantly rotate and get meaningful production from the interior push. Now, I got greedy and I took them there because I thought, go back to the wide receivers, and I think I can still get Taj Washington here. Yes, I can. Go ahead, and we're going to take Taj Washington from USC. We're going to double down on receiver. We're going 2 and we're going 4. And the reason why we're doing this is because Taj Washington is a very, very, very different player than what you got in Javon Baker. Taj Washington is one of my favorite players in the draft just to watch. He's just a lot of fun. Now, why on earth is he still available here? He's still available here because he's small, right? He's 5'10", 175 pounds. And I have no problem drafting size outliers late in the draft. We're on day 3 at this point. We're in the middle of day 3. We're in round 5, pick 9 now for the Buffalo Bills, right? So for me, I am completely fine taking size outliers late in the draft. The reason why I was out on people like DeJuan Jones and people like Tank Dell last year is because I don't like taking size outliers early. But I'm fine taking them late, right? When the investment is so small. One of the things that you really need to deal with that we don't talk about at all. The Bills have no return men on the roster.
Nope.
Like, are we going to talk about that? Like, I feel like no one's talking about that. You can just say, okay, you have a slot receiver at this point who can be a nice little weapon on offense for you, but you also have a return guy. And the Bills have no return guys. So the reason why I'm doubling up is because they're not redundant at all. They're not even filling the same role. They're not even attempting to fill the same role. So for me, it's about, hey, let's cross off 2 things. I know that they're wide receivers, but they're not the same at all. This is a guy who has some kick return experience. He's got the ability to really go in there and compete. So for me, now it wasn't 2023 wasn't a return thing, but 2022 he did some returns. 2021 he did some returns. He was with Memphis before he transferred, right? There was some returns there. So I want someone who can come in and compete. Now I don't think he's going to come in and be like unquestionably the guy. I think if you wanted someone, you'd have to take somebody else. But I want to double dip on receiver, and I want to get some help from the return game, and that's where I'm taking Taj Washington.
Now, all these picks here in day 3 coming up here, these 5th round picks, 3 of them. I kind of feel like, again, in the real world, I feel like Brandon Beane's making some moves, whether he's trading picks for maybe acquiring more for next year, or whether he's packaging needs to move up this year. I feel like there's going to be moves, not necessarily going to take all these guys. By the way, my guy Estime, Chiefs. I mean, come on, they get Estime and Mitchell here in this mock. I'm not liking it. But anyway, the Bills are up on the clock again right here. We're at pick 144 overall. So we've went wide receiver twice, interior defensive line, and center. You've beefed up the trenches, and you picked 2 receivers. And we're up. What are you thinking now?
Show me safety at this point. Now we're in the 5th round, so you're not going to get somebody who's going to come in. Yeah, I know exactly who we're taking. that was that was easy. So again, I've done this before. This is not my first rodeo of PFF, so I have a good handle for kind of what I need to do. I want safeties with versatility. I want safeties who can play in the box, who can play deep. I'm taking Bo Braid from Maryland, and I'm taking him as a safety. Has requisite size to be able to do what you need to do. 6'1", 210, willingness to tackle, not an elite level athlete, but shows good instincts, played meaningful snaps in the box, played meaningful snaps deep. Ironically enough, in 2022, Maryland used him as more of a deep safety. In 2023, he was more of a box safety. So he's got both. Now, one thing I don't like is that I don't love his tackling form, and I think that that's an extension of the fact that he's not an elite level athlete. And I think that when you're not an elite level athlete, sometimes it's hard for you to get a bead on some of the, excellent athletes that you're going to have facing you in the NFL. And sometimes that means you can kind of lose your angle a little bit. And so I don't love that about him, but you're in the 5th round. You're not getting, you're not getting elite plug and play players in the 5th round. You're getting people who you think have the right mentality, have the right experience. They can come in. I think he can play on special teams right away for you. He can be a 4th safety, can be some competition. And, we'll see. You can develop something down the line.
Now we're at pick 160 for the Bills, who are on the clock. We still got 6 picks left. Top of the quarterback list. Is there anyone out here who interests you at a quarterback? With Sam Hartman, I don't know that he's really an NFL guy. I don't know, but if the right quarterback was there, and you get to say, well, round 4 probably too early, but round 5, are you like the right guys there? Maybe this could be a good time to take developmental quarterback. Does there happen to be any here that pique your interest?
Maybe, but I'll got to be honest. When you signed Mitchell Trubisky to a 2-year deal, that really closed the door for any sort of semi-meaningful expenditure at quarterback, because you're not going to carry 3, right? Which means you have to practice squad him. And if you take him in the 4th or 5th round, you might not make it to the practice squad at that point, because you're taking a quarterback high enough. Now, in 7th round, sure, whatever. No, everybody passed on him a bunch of times too. No one's going to want him. But as far as like a late day 2 to mid day 3 pick, you're like, I don't really know. You're not going to get very many reps. And Brandon Beane said it himself. One of the things that he loves about getting a veteran backup is that you're not going to get a lot of reps. So if you're not going to develop and we're just going to waste a pick, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I go back and forth on it, but it's not really for me. So historically,
one of these years it will be.
It will be.
All right. Well, they're on the clock, I should say, right now at pick 160 or still in the 5th round. Kalen King, a cornerback from Penn State, is the highest non-quarterback or just the highest player on the board right now. I don't know.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Kalen King here, and I'm going to hope that Dylan Laub is still there when the time is to make a pick. Kalen King is someone who a lot of time, oh my gosh, the Cardinals took Dylan Laub right before the Buffalo Bills. This is what happens. So
this is what I love about drafts, mock drafts, though, man. It can be legit heartbreak at times. Go ahead.
Kalen King coming into 2023 was thought about extremely highly, and he just didn't have the year that you thought he was going to have. Like Kalen King was in 1st round mock drafts coming into 2023.
Oh, wow.
And he ran into Marvin Harrison a couple times, so that didn't go great, but he overall didn't have the year that you want him to have. But that tools, those abilities are still in there. And so if you're telling me I can get a player with that type of talent here in the 5th round and say, yeah, I'll take a day 3 flyer on that guy, and he can come in and replace Dane Jackson, you can never have too many good, talented outside corners. And I think that he is a wonderful person to want to have in a developmental role, because I think that talent's still in there. His ability to play at a high level is still in there. There's a reason why he was thought so highly of coming in this year. And so for me, it's just you have these players take step backs, but I still keep an eye on them. You know what I mean? Like I still keep an eye on the players like that. He's a significant athlete. He's smooth. He has a little bit of aggression issues, but that stuff can be coached out, I think. And I think that this is the type of player you want to take in the 5th round. Someone who has all the tools. You've seen him play at a high level. You just got to put it together.
All right. Well, we were back right back. Bills, all these picks, man. We still got 5 left to go too. 163. Bills are up.
All right. Well, Dylan Laub is gone. Show me the running backs again.
Running backs?
I think I know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to be grumpy about it.
Dylan Johnson's the top one on the board from Washington. Tyrone Tracy from Purdue.
Okay, so
Frank Gore Jr. It's a name at least. Southern Miss.
So we're gonna tempt fate again. Okay. So we're gonna keep an eye on Kamani Vidal. Okay. We're gonna keep an eye on Kamani Vidal from Troy, who, by the way, is just so much fun. I would very highly encourage you to go watch him. Just a lot of fun. And I'm going to tell you why. Wait, first off, before I do that, do you know why Kamani Vidal is so much fun?
No, I don't.
Okay. So he's a running back ostensibly. Like, okay. So he's a running back, but he played a bunch of other stuff. And so for me, it's just this, I just want to have a really good athlete later on in the draft, and I can work with him, right? He got a bajillion touches at Troy over the last couple of years. And he's short and he's stocky. And I think he's the kind of runner who's going to consistently get you that little extra cut. I just don't think he's someone you would ever want to build an offense around. I think he's a lot of fun. Okay. So I think he can catch passes. I think he can run really hard in a straight line. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. And, I'm going to say all this stuff about him, and then he's not going to be here. So go back to the big board and scroll down a little bit, because I think I saw somebody that I want to take at this point.
Now, I want to let people know too, listening. So we're at pick 163, and after talking about him, your next pick's going to be 189. So it might be fun to follow the board if you don't take him here. So,
all right. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Show me. You know what? We haven't taken an edge yet. If I remember correctly, we have not taken an edge. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay. So
we made so many picks, it starts to get hard. And again, they don't show up on the board until the end too, but no, we haven't. So,
I'm taking Braden McGregor here from, hold on. I'm going back and forth between McGregor and Harrell. I have historically taken this. There's a Michigan edge issue here. Braden McGregor and Jalen Harrell. I go back and forth in mocks because I kind of want to fiddle with it. I have historically taken Harrell when faced with this decision, and I've also taken Solomon Byrd here a little bit. So those are 3 edges that I have always kind of gravitated towards when I haven't taken them high. And goodness gracious. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. So Byrd is the atypical frame. So Byrd is the, 6'3", 250. He's the atypical person that I mentioned earlier that they don't historically take, right? That's why one of the reasons why Von Miller was such a strange acquisition, because he's not typical. Jalen Harrell is that same kind of player, right? 6'4", 240 kind of guy. Then you have Braden McGregor. Braden McGregor is like 6'6", 265. And you go, okay, hey, that's a little bit closer to the type. But you know what? This isn't their mock draft. This is my mock draft. I'm taking Jalen Harrell. I want to. Okay? That's what I want to do.
I'm watching the board now. Let's see if our running back is still going to be there. He's still there so far. Got a little ways to go.
Just sitting here like it's like peeling off, like scratching off lottery numbers right now on like a scratch ticket. Like you're just like, come on, 42, 42, 42, 42.
There. He's still there.
Okay, Kamani Vidal's still there, so I'm taking Kamani Vidal at 189. And I already said everything that I want to say about him from Troy. I think he's a really good bowling ball sort of pair running back to James Cook. I think they complement each other well, and you're not pinning yourself into a wall, because I don't think that he's without pass catching ability.
Gotcha. 3 more left here. All right. So, and the Bills are up too. So we're at pick 200. So they got 200, 204. What is that? 246, 248. I can't even see with my blind eyes anymore. But anyway, we're down to our last 3 picks. I don't think we've taken a corner in this draft, have we?
We did. We took Kalen King.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My bad. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we took Kalen King. I'm going to take Steel Chambers here, linebacker, Ohio State. So converted running back. And I love converted running backs at other positions, right? Converting running backs to safety, converting running backs to linebacker. I always think it's so much fun. And Steel Chambers even kept the running back number. He kept 22 at Ohio State. And I thought that was a lot of fun. So I'm down. I'm down for Steel Chambers. So here's what you need. I think you need somebody to come in and compete for sure, but you need an athlete. Because if you're not going to be able to crack the top 3, which you probably aren't going to be able to, then you have to replace Tyler Matakevich on special teams.
Right.
And you need someone who can run down the field on special teams, someone who can tackle, someone who has that mentality. I think Steel Chambers has that. I think that's what you're looking for late in the draft. You're looking for these players that you want to be able to replace the Saron Neals of the world and the Tyler Matakaviches of the world cheaper. That's what you want. Having players who are good on special teams isn't a bad thing. Having expensive players who are only good on special teams is the problem. Right. So I think that on day 3, it's exactly the type of player you want to get.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're down to our last 2 darts here. Pick overall 204. Buffalo Bills are on the clock.
If there is one thing to take away from this conversation, it is that the Buffalo Bills are not going to make 11 picks.
Absolutely not.
They're not going to do it.
I agree.
Like, think about how ridiculous this is. Like, they're not going to make 11 picks. I almost said, I just want you to know, I almost said that if the Bills make 11 picks, I'll show you my face on Twitter. Like, I almost said it. And I was like, no, don't commit to it. don't do it. Right. But I was inches away from doing it. I'm taking Caden Wallace here, right tackle out of Penn State. I think you have a pure right tackle prospect that you can take and develop, right? Meaningful size, 6'5", 341. And he is a true right tackle prospect. I think he's gotten better every year. I think that you get a lot of freak athletes from Penn State, right? Penn State does a really good job of getting good athletes. They don't always do a great job of developing those athletes, but it's kind of like a running joke amongst people who follow the combine that, oh, he's from Penn State. He's going to be he's going to be a freak. Well, Caden Wallace is a freak, right? Caden Wallace had a RAS score of 9.1. Like he's a big boy who moves fast. 10-yard split's good. The agility is really strong. And agility stuff is stuff I think about when it comes to offensive linemen a lot. I mean, it's a 31 vertical. It's 908 on the broad. So the explosion's there. I think he moves pretty well. And I think you saw him do, agile things, which is something that's, when you're at 341 pounds and 6'5", agile is subjective, but he's agile for that size. And I think that you have Spencer Brown coming into the last year of his contract. It's nice to get a nice hedge there. You can never have too many offensive linemen in the tank. You just got rid of a bunch of your depth. So bring him in. Let's let him compete.
All right. Last pick here. Pick overall 248. The Bills are finally making their last pick here. 7th round. 2 of his brothers on the board, by the way. Maryland quarterback there. What are you thinking?
I'm taking Talia Tagovailoa just to tick off Miami fans. That's it. That's the only reason. That's it.
Can I just call him to his brother? I don't even want him to, it's disrespect for him. I'm not going to do that. All right. So anyway.
Sure, yeah. We just take him. We'll just take him just to annoy Miami fans. And that's the only thing I need. I don't need any other reason to do it aside from that to have it be completely useful.
All right. So this is Bruce Nolan's mock draft. Now we're complete. And again, we're both realizing here they're not going to make all these picks. It's just not going to happen. They're either going to move up and have less picks now, or they're going to trade away a couple of these for future years. But anyway, so pick first round, 28th overall, Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. Went Javon Baker in round 2, receiver from UCF. That's Gabe Davis' school too, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So you're a little bit
different
of
coaching staff, different recruiting class, all thing. But yes, same school.
Interior defensive lineman Christian Boyd goes in round 4 from Northern Iowa. Taj Washington, pick overall 133 in round 4 from, I got that right, from USC. Round 5, Bo Braid, a safety from Maryland. And we go Kalen King, a corner from Penn State. Jalen Harrell, that was fun seeing you suffer between 1 or 3 guys there. By the way, PFF didn't like your pick. D+ grade on that one. Anyway, the edge from Michigan. Who's this running back's name? I don't even pronounce his name.
Kamani Vidal.
That's the guy. I'll tell you what, I promise you, I will be all in watching him after doing this podcast. Running back from Troy. Linebacker Steele Chambers from Ohio State. Caden Wallace, offensive tackle from Penn State. And then the quarterback here to end the draft. B grade from PFF here. Not bad, not bad. Let me ask you this now in real time, because again, you know how it goes. You're doing these drafts in real time and, limited with the amount of time you have to think about it. Going back, are you pretty pleased with this? I feel like you are, because you had an opportunity to take Mitchell or McConkey or a receiver in the first round or an edge, and you chose Jackson Powers Johnson, and you talked up Baker in round 2. So I get a sense that you're pretty happy with this mock draft.
I am happy with this mock draft. I think that in a more perfect world, I would be able to use the 2 4s and move up a little bit, use a 4 and a 5 and move up a little bit, or I could move back from 28 if I liked multiple people. Like, for example, I liked Jackson Powers Johnson. I liked Adonai Mitchell. I liked Ladd McConkey there, right? Let's assume that Jackson Powers Johnson wasn't there and Adonai Mitchell wasn't there. And it was just Ladd McConkey was the highest rated person on my board, right? I would be okay slipping back a few picks, picking up a 3, and then using a 2 and a 4 to jump up and being able to have that type of, consolidation where I have 3 picks in the first round instead of 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, so I can get 3 picks in the first 3 rounds as opposed to 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. I'm going to take that because I think that I could potentially double up on wide receiver at that point and not have a Taj Washington be the second guy, right? You could get if you ended up with like Roman Wilson and Ricky Pearsall as your receivers, I would be thrilled coming out of this. And so I love Javon Baker and I love Jackson Powers Johnson, but the ability to move means you really have to just take the best player on the board who fills a position where you feel like you need an impact player. And that doesn't really give you the flexibility to be able to maximize your efficiency.
Gotcha. All right. Well, last question here, and I'm going to let you go, man. I appreciate your time. Of course, I want to put you out of spot a little bit. So doing this mock got me thinking, like, over the past, maybe say handful of years, Bruce, doing your mocks, you know what? Forget about just mocks, just your evaluation of these prospects over the past few years. Off the top of your head, who's probably the player that you were most wrong about as a prospect, whether it's been somebody who's been really good or really bad in this league that you were really high or low on? And conversely, give me a guy that like you kind of felt like he was going to be really good. And this guy wasn't talked much about, and then he's really turned into something, like somebody that you were spot on about, or somebody that you thought was overrated and everybody talked up and kind of flopped. Kind of give me one of each if you can.
Hakeem Butler was my wide receiver 1 the year he came out.
Oh,
I did not understand why we weren't thinking about him higher. He was from Iowa State. In 2019, I was like, I just don't understand it. Like, why don't we love Hakeem Butler? Right. He got drafted in the 4th round after I thought he was like a early day 2 guy. So I was off on positioning as well. And then the entire time I was like, well, it's got to be medical. It's got to be medical. It's got to be medical. Right. Because every single time I like a player and they end up falling way out, it's always medical, right? There's something that they found. He's got a heart condition. He's got something else. And I was like, I was just asking around and typing everybody I know, like, what's the deal? What's the deal? And they all came back with the same thing. It's not medical. They just don't like him as much as you do. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, this one I'm going to be way right on, right? I'm still, and I just didn't, right? He broke his hand his first season, missed the whole year, got cut, practice squad, bounce around. He became a tight end for the Eagles for a minute. And then he played in the Canadian Football League. And then he was with the, I think it was either the UFL or the XFL. And then he came back and was the Steelers. And now he's back in the UFL again. And I'm like, okay, well, I was pretty wrong on that one. Just definitely wrong on that one. Conversely, I'm going to go with another wide receiver, someone that I was really right on. And the NFL and I very, very, very highly disagreed on this particular player. And it was N'Keal Harry. And N'Keal Harry ended up getting taken by the Patriots at pick 32. And I just did not see it like at all with N'Keal. He wasn't even my top 5 wide receivers. I famously, one of my greatest Bruceisms of all time was use that draft cycle. I said, he's late stage Des Bryant is what I called. So it's Des Bryant when he's lost the ability to select, run. Right. And so I said he's late stage Des Bryant, and then he ends up getting drafted in the first round. And everyone's like, see, Bruce, he was a first round talent. And I'm like, well, let's wait. And he was an absolutely abysmal player in the NFL. He just, at some point, you actually have to get open. So one of the things that's really important that I don't think we talk about enough when it comes to wide receivers is contested catches. The ability to make a contested catch is great. You know what's better? Not having the catch be contested. That's better. So if a high percentage of your targets in college are contested, it better be because your quarterback's just freaking awful with ball placement. Because if it's not, it's because you're just not getting open. So you can, oh man, look at this spectacular catch. Oh, look at this spectacular catch. Okay, you're looking at a highlight reel, and if 40% of your targets are contested, it's because you don't get open. And so I want players who, get open. I'm old fashioned like that. And so for me, that was the one I absolutely nailed, was N'Keal Harry. And the one I absolutely whiffed on was Hakeem Butler. They're both receivers. And I thought it would be good to bring up those players because it's such a receiver heavy draft cycle in the narrative of the Buffalo Bills this year.
That is perfect too. All right. And that's going to do it, man. Make sure you follow Bruce on Twitter, by the way, at Bruce Exclusive. Catch out the show. There's nothing like him, dude. You really are. I truly mean this, man. I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, man. One of my absolute favorites. You have been for a long time. I remember going back several years ago, falsely taking 16% credit for finding you out about, like, this dude needs to be in the mainstream. I think it was 16% sounds right. I think that's what the number was. And wasn't it what we agreed on at the time?
Yeah, I think you and Joe were arguing about that on a podcast, weren't you?
Yeah.
Just what percentage of credit should you take for the rise of Bruce Nolan? As if somehow you can consider where I'm at some sort of rise. But yeah, it was it's been fun. It's good to go through multiples of these draft cycles. And I think one of the best things about going through so many of these draft cycles is that I'm not afraid of being wrong. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I don't feel the need to be overly protective of my stuff. So for example, everyone's like, yeah, man, you liked Josh Rosen better than Josh Allen. I go, yep.
Me too.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Show me your top rankings for every single position, every single draft. We'll see how you did. Like, go back and show me those timestamps. Like, I'm just not afraid of that. Like, okay, cool. You swing and you miss, you learn, you move on. And so I don't think it's very personal. And that's the thing that allows me to just keep going, because this is not personal. This is supposed to be fun. Yeah. One of the things I tweeted before I hopped on here, and you mentioned that I dropped a mock draft. I actually dropped 2, and they're very, very, very different mock drafts that I dropped on Twitter this evening. And the reason I did it is because what I like to do is I like to drop mock drafts to weed out all the people who are horrible communicators, right? And then I mute them.
You love the mute.
Right? So it's bait,
creative.
Right? So for example, if I drop a mock draft and you get so angry, you start like cursing and stuff at me, like at that point, you're just a bad communicator, right? Like you're just an unreasonable person. So it's just congratulations on your mute, right? You've shown yourself, you've exposed yourself. I'm going to continue to have reasonable dialogue with reasonable people. And if you're not going to be one of those people, then we don't need to communicate. And so it's all a bait, man. It's all a bait, right? Everything is mute bait if you love yourself and you try hard enough.
You might be the only person I've ever known to put out a mock draft for the primary purpose, at least, of setting some mute bait, man. That is absolutely Awesome, dude. I really do. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate everybody out there for watching, for listening. I'm going to be back with a brand new show tomorrow. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, man.